this morning with my mind on true freedom.
I think it's safe to assume that by now, if you have been keeping up with Tyra over the years, you've heard the name Kenneth Keelan, or you already know who I'm talking about. We now go back to the year 1992, when Donna had hooked up with Kenneth Keelan Sr., and Tyra was hooked up with Jacqueline Lachelle Matthews.
Sleep last night with true freedom on my mind.
In the year 1992, Donna was the tender age of 21 and hooked up with Kenneth Keelan Sr., who was already 31 and 10 years her senior. Instead of being in the honeymoon phase of their relationship, just 1 month before Kenneth Lamont Keelan was conceived, Kenneth Sr. was charged with battery resulting in bodily injury in September of 1992.
Because you a bitch nigga, that's why. Because you a bitch nigga.
But nonetheless, 10 months later, in July of 1993, Donna gave birth to Kenny at the age of 22. And just a short 11 months later, gave birth to her daughter, Kendra Keelan, in 1994. I don't know how long Donna endured the abuse, and I'm not sure how long she subsequently stayed with Kenneth after the birth of Kendra. We all know by now that things did not work out with Donna and Kenneth. Obviously, the violence with Tyra is less painful or scary enough to make her stay. However, I noticed that although Kenny is referred to as Little Kenny and carries the name Kenneth Keelan, he is not a junior. Kenny's middle name is Lamont and is not Eugene like his father. Before Kenneth Sr. met Donna, Kenny Sr. had hooked up and had a child by the name of Kenneth Eugene Keelan Jr.
I'm surprised that he still got skin on his motherfucking dick.
When he was just 17 years old. Donna would have only been 7 years old at this time, at the time of Kenneth Jr.'s birth. But then, at the age of 22, Kenneth Eugene Sr. goes on and produces another child whom that mother named Kenneth Eugene Keelan III.
Go get a girlfriend, cuz. Fuck wrong with you?
5 years after the birth of Kenneth Jr. So, why are we exploring the Kenneth Keelans today? What makes them so interesting? Well, Kenneth Keelan Sr., Donna's ex, as you know, was charged with battery resulting in bodily injury in September of 1992. His son, Kenneth Keelan Jr., well, he has quite a few charges, starting with, in February of 2004, for resisting law enforcement. In August of 2004, he was given a Class D felony for 2 counts of domestic battery, and invasion of privacy. In March of 2005, he was charged with possession of cocaine and public intox. March of 2010, he was charged with theft and receiving stolen property. May of 2010, he was charged with a felony for a residential break-in, battery, and criminal trespass. Kenneth Keelan Jr. was then extradited in 2011 to Marion County, Indiana, from Virginia, where his 61-year-old father resides with his 38-year-old fiancée, Yvonne, in their $450,000 home. But then, in January of 2015, he was charged with criminal confinement resulting in bodily injury, charged with strangulation, a threat to commit forcible felony, battery resulting in bodily injury, invasion of privacy. That charge was also upgraded due to the fact that on 10/1 of 2011, he was extradited from Virginia back to Indiana for his charges on domestic battery and invasion of privacy. He had a prior charge for invasion of privacy in an unrelated case. On 4/6 of 15, he was again charged with battery on a person under the age of 14. He was again charged with criminal confinement, battery on a family member in the presence of a child, battery resulting in bodily injury, and criminal mischief.
Nigga, you still got wood paneling with roaches behind it on your wall. What have you accomplished, bruh?
Kenney Sr. was charged in August of 2000 with possession of a controlled substance and resisting law enforcement. Now let me introduce you to Kenneth Eugene Keelan III. Kenneth Eugene Keelan III has as many charges as Kenney Jr. has, but let's add sodomy rape on a child in August of 2008, and he was not sentenced until January of 2012, 4 years after the crime.
Fucked up ass nigga. Well, you been in prison too much, man. They done tapped into your movies.
He was also extradited from Virginia back to Indianapolis for those charges. Kenneth Keelan III was released for sodomy rape on a child, but was later arrested for not registering with a violent sex offender registry in Indianapolis and Virginia, and appears to be in custody in the state of Indiana. Kenneth Lamont Keelan, whom Tyra said had never received any charges, never even been arrested for a traffic ticket, never came in contact with a police officer at any point in his life. Unfortunately, that's not true. In January of 2013, little Kenney was charged with domestic battery and battery. In April of 2013, he was charged with no valid license and no seatbelt, and again charged in July of 2011 with not having a driver's license.
I got time for your bullshit.
The conclusion of my observation is simply this. Something has went terribly wrong in the Keelan gene pool. Kenneth Sr. started his path of being domestically violent, and he had his time resisting law enforcement.
You a clown. You a old clown, bro.
And I believe that his time with the U.S. Army swayed or pushed him back in the right direction, along with the I Have a Dream Foundation guiding him back to humanity. Kenneth Jr. and Kenneth III seem to pretty much be a hopeless case. Both are women abusers. Both are rapists. One is a pedophilic rapist and a child predator. And although little Kenney is now deceased, he was headed down the path of domestic battery, and we will never know if that's the path that he would have continued down if he had been here today. Here's a little side note story time. While Kenneth Jr. was incarcerated after his extradition back to Indianapolis at the Wabash Valley Correctional Facility in Carlisle, Indiana, Lieutenant Kent had to write up Mr. Keelan for an incident that occurred between Kenneth and a few other inmates. The report reads as follows. On 10/19/2015, at approximately 5:38 p.m., the camera system in the G Unit middle bed area caught inmate Lawson engaged in a verbal confrontation with inmate Cox. After several minutes, inmate Cox,
Fuck out of here.
along with inmates Fox, Coleman, Smith, and Keelan, began to strike inmate Lawson in the face and body region with closed fists. The fight continued in the middle bed area and moved down the bedrows and lasted approximately 10 to 15 minutes. While Kenneth Sr. lives in a beautiful home now with his current fiancée Yvonne, let's take a look at a photo of the home that Kenneth lived in at the time he was with Donna and living in Indiana. This is a picture of the home as seen today.
You run around jumping from dick to dick to dick to dick, Nickelodeon. What's the word, Thunderbird? You know what I'm saying? No, scratch that. It wasn't you free men never accomplished nothing in real life. What happened to you? Let me calm down. Tasmania devil sounding motherfucker. Shut your bitch ass up, nigga. Shut your bitch ass up, nigga. Your mind don't even click right. Anything you think you in. You know what I'm saying, man? Finax. Hashtag Finax, nigga.